For decades, monitoring the safety of approved drugs relied on passive data collection. Regulatory bodies waited for doctors to notice and report adverse reactions, a method that inevitably left gaps in patient safety. Modern pharmacology requires an active risk management model. To see how this operates in practice, we can look at the infrastructure established within Kuwait. The Kuwait Pharmacovigilance Center, or KPVC, is the central authority responsible for this oversight. They enforce the Kuwait Good Pharmacovigilance Practice Guidelines, commonly referred to as KU-GVP. KU-GVP version 5 organizes compliance into a bifurcated ecosystem, one half rooted in localized clinical reporting and the other in global corporate oversight. True compliance under this system demands precise integration. The clinical nodes that gather raw patient data must interface seamlessly with a divided corporate architecture. Only when these two halves connect can they fuel an active signal management pipeline capable of identifying actual risks. To understand how this ecosystem identifies a single dangerous drug interaction out of millions of doses, we have to build the architecture from the ground up, starting with the first principles of data ingestion and following the protocols all the way to regulatory escalation. The base unit of the KU-GVP framework sits directly inside hospitals and clinics. Under the guidelines, healthcare institutions must appoint a pharmacovigilance focal point, or PVFP. This individual acts as the primary collection node for safety data. When a patient experiences a serious adverse drug reaction or a suspected unexpected serious adverse reaction, the PVFP compiles the details into a standardized data packet called an Individual Case Safety Report, or ICSR. However, standard ICSRs are not the only data type collected. KU-GVP establishes a separate, distinct protocol for vaccines, utilizing the Vaccines Adverse Event Reporting Form, or VAER. Vaccines require a specific causality assessment that standard drugs do not. The PVPF must isolate whether an adverse event was a true, cause-specific reaction to the biological components of the vaccine, or if it was an immunization error-related reaction caused by improper handling or administration. Once formatted, these data packets, ICSRs, VAERs, and specific quality defect forms, are routed from local clinical nodes into a central national gateway platform known as VigiFlow. VigiFlow serves as the ingestion layer. Its ultimate function is to link Kuwait's localized clinical data directly into VigiBase, the global adverse event database maintained by the World Health Organization. But raw data pooling at the clinical level cannot independently generate safety protocols. The information is inert until it is processed by a corporate architecture legally structured to analyze it. This brings us to the corporate layer and the legal responsibilities of the Marketing Authorization Holder, or MAH. The MAH is the pharmaceutical company that holds the rights to sell a specific medical product in Kuwait. This chart illustrates the strict bifurcation of oversight demanded by KU-GVP. The guidelines require the MAH to split its pharmacovigilance responsibilities into two separate regulatory pillars. The first pillar is governed by the qualified person responsible for pharmacovigilance, the QPPV. This individual holds global systemic accountability for the MAH's entire pharmacovigilance network. The second pillar is controlled by the local safety responsible person, the LSR. This is an in-country expert residing in Kuwait who is legally liable for national compliance and local safety monitoring. This division exists by design. It forces the pharmaceutical company to cross-reference broad global safety insights from the QPPV against the highly localized medical practices and population genetics monitored by the LSR. The separation of personnel is mirrored by a strict division in compliance documentation. The MAH must maintain a pharmacovigilance system master file, the PSMF, alongside a mandatory local counterpart. Looking at this comparative table, the global PSMF on the left details the overarching structure of the company. It maps the global organizational hierarchy, lists all universal safety data sources, and defines the overarching quality systems used by the MAH worldwide.
On the right is the local requirement, the Pharmacovigilance Subsystem Master File, or PSSMF. The PSSMF serves as a specialized record of the specific national processes required for operating within Kuwait. KU-GVP mandates 3 unique elements in the PSSMF: the precise written procedures for national pharmacovigilance processes, the exact architecture of local safety databases, and the localized performance metrics of the PV subsystem. Successfully integrating the local PSSMF with the global PSSMF is the foundational legal requirement for any MAH operating in Kuwait. Without this dual-file architecture in place, the company cannot legally process safety signals. The critical intersection of the KuGVP framework occurs when the clinical data flowing from VigiFlow meets the dual-file corporate architecture. This intersection is the signal management pipeline. This diagram illustrates the sequential filtering of that pipeline. Step 1 is signal detection. Data analysts mine the global Visualize system and internal MAA databases to isolate statistical anomalies, clusters of adverse events that deviate from expected baselines. Step 2 is signal validation. The raw anomalies are scrutinized to verify the strength of the evidence and assess their actual clinical relevance. Step 3 is signal analysis and prioritization. The validated signals are formally ranked based on their potential impact on public health, determining which issues require immediate regulatory attention. These first 3 steps act as a rigorous filter. They strip away statistical noise, leaving only high-probability safety signals that demand definitive pharmacological assessment. Step 4 is signal assessment. Here, the MAA conducts a comprehensive pharmacological evaluation of the prioritized signal to determine definitive causality between the drug and the adverse event. If causality is established, the process hits Step 5, signal escalation. This is the threshold at which the signal is legally required to be reported to the KPVC. The immediate regulatory consequence of an escalated signal is a mandatory update to the product's Risk Management Plan, or RMP. The MAH must categorize the new finding into one of 3 classifications: an identified risk with proven causality, a potential risk requiring further study, or missing information concerning specific patient populations. Signal escalation marks the exact pivot point in the ecosystem. It is the moment a pharmaceutical company transitions from analyzing a statistical problem to legally mitigating a patient hazard. Identifying and categorizing risk is only half the mandate. The ultimate goal of the KuGVP architecture is to translate those findings into actionable safety communication. When an RMP is updated with a critical risk, the KPVC and the MAH initiate a direct HCP communication, or DHPC. This is a targeted protocol designed to deliver urgent safety information directly to prescribing doctors and pharmacists. A DHPC deploys specific risk minimization measures. This can include issuing patient alert cards, mandating updated drug labeling, or revising dosage instructions based on the escalated signal. This downward flow of information from the corporate level back to the clinical nodes closes the pharmacovigilance loop. The data collected by hospitals results in modified guidelines that alter actual patient care. To ensure this massive data pipeline maintains its integrity, the KPVC relies on a strict enforcement mechanism, the pharmacovigilance inspection. MAHs face 3 distinct categories of audits. Routine inspections verify ongoing compliance. For-cause inspections are triggered by specific regulatory triggers or known failures, and system-related inspections evaluate the structural integrity of the PSMF and PSSMF. This graphic maps the complete ecosystem. We start with clinical focal points extracting data, which uploads to national and global databases. That data is processed by an MAH architecture, cleanly divided between global QPPVs and local LSRs. The data is pushed through a 5-step signal pipeline, and finally, refined safety protocols are pushed back down to the clinic. Kuwaiti regulation treats pharmacovigilance as a rigorously audited data science requirement for market access. Every sale depends on maintaining this interconnected reporting loop.